name is Omolayo Ashonibare. I am a child and adolescent counselor, a parenting educator, and an advocate for healthy parent-child relationship. Like that's like the most important part of everything that I do. As an advocate for healthy parent-child relationship, it's important to me that um, the home feels emotionally safe and that parents are emotionally intelligent, because really that's basically what we need when it comes to nurturing a healthy parent-child relationship. I am the founder of Olive Resources. That's the arm of business where we get to sell educational resources, books, games, toys, and all that you need to create a nurturing environment in your home. And I'm also the founder of Olive Nurture Even. That is the parenting academy or the parenting aspect of what I do. Olive Nurture Haven is a restorative space that equips parents, teachers, caregivers, child handlers in general. It equips them with tools for healing and what they need to ensure conscious parenting. With over 15 years work experience, working with children, working with parents, working with the family at large, from overwhelmed mothers to withdrawn teens to wounded children who are trapped in adult body. This and much more is what I have had to work with, or this category of people are the people that I have had to work with in over 15 years, over a decade and a half, yes. And but then beyond all of the qualifications, beyond the expertise and experiences, is a deeply personal story, a story that is very dear to my heart. I am a woman who was once a little child, who wasn't praised for her uniqueness, who wasn't embraced for her differences. Instead, I was seen as the toughest nut to crack. Yeah. You know that child that everyone sees and they're like, why is this child just so different from every other child in the family? Yes. And then you end up labeling that child as the black sheep of the family, quote and unquote. I was she. And of course, everyone, extended families, guests, friends, neighbors, name them. Everyone would comment on how very different I was from all my other siblings. And to my heart now, or yeah, my parents would also nod in the affirmative. And it hurt because somehow the little child in me was hoping that my parents would defend me, or for some reason that my parents would try to protect me. But no, they would affirm to how different I was. And there were times that my mom would literally say it like, you're not even like any of your siblings. I remember times when she would say, why can't you? I mean, of course, you know how parents can be like, why can't you just be like this other child who is more peace loving, calmer, soft, and all of that? Yeah. But then expressing all of these was not done out of a place of softness. It was done from a place of disappointment, from a place of not meeting a certain level of expectation. And every time that I looked forward to feeling protected from the external voices that keep reminding me of how very different I was from my other siblings, I could hear these other voices as loud as it can be in my head. The voice would echo so loud in affirmation instead. And then, of course, what would follow? The silence, the agreement, the deep, cut voice. And that would hurt me so badly. And of course, all of that shaped how I saw myself, how I expressed my emotions, how I coped with difficult situations, how I coped with conflicts, how I coped with struggles for years. So, yes, I said all of that to say this. I get it. I'm not coming from a professional angle of a child and adolescent counselor who is high up there. I am coming as a woman who was once a child with all of those struggles personally. And I'm here to tell you that it is not a blame game. Tonight's session is not a blame game. It's basically a session with deep truth. We don't yell because we're bad parents. No, that's not why we yell. We yell because we were never taught how to be heard without fear. We were never taught how to communicate with confidence. We were never taught how to communicate with assertiveness. So we felt the need to always communicate our wants, our desires, our thoughts from a place of force and fear. That is actually why we yell. So, to the topic of today, the lies we tell ourselves. Yes, the lies we tell ourselves about yelling and tough love. Let's begin with some level of brutal honesty. I'll try as much as possible to soften that with compassion. Yes? So, have you ever yelled at your child and afterwards you felt a tangled mess of guilt, shame, and exhaustion? Like you're done yelling and you feel really sad that you had to do that to your child. Have you caught yourself saying any of these statements? If I don't shout, they won't listen. We have allowed ourselves to believe this very one. They won't listen if you don't shout. We've allowed ourselves to believe this. Have you caught yourself saying, it is tough love, and that is how I was raised? Or the other excuse that we give, I only yell when I have had enough. These children will continue to frustrate you. So when you have had enough of the yell, of the frustration or the stress, you yell. Let's say the truth. Yelling may get short-term obedience. It may give us short-term compliance. But in the long run, it creates distance in relationships. And tough love. Oftentimes, tough love is actually not love. Tough love is fear pretending to be love. You know, that fear that we are losing control, that fear that our children are a reflection of our failure, that fear that if we don't go hard, we won't be respected. But let's be clear. The truth is, fear may produce silence. Fear may produce immediate obedience, but it doesn't produce security. It doesn't create the safe environments that we honestly desire to nurture in our homes. So why instill fear in the first place? As we proceed, there are words that I would like to define for the benefit of today's class, majorly. Now we know that of course, when we talk about yelling, what yelling basically means is raising your voice tad bit, just a little, just a little bit louder than your voice should be. That is what yelling is. So if you are the one that literally yells for a living, yes, I have people in my circle that tell me I yell for a living. Nice meeting you. Yelling, raising your voice in frustration or in anger is basically it's basically a feeling to want to be in control. But we'll come back to that. Another word we're going to be defining is tough love. Now, tough love is the parenting style based on strictness and emotional detachment, assuming it builds character. So that tough love is where you get to detach yourself from your child's emotional experiences. Yeah. And you do that because you believe that when you try to act tough, it builds your child's character. Is not true. Another word we are defining tonight is emotional neglect. Yes, when you ignore your child, you dismiss your child's emotional needs. Your child comes to you, mommy, 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 and then your child literally, in my home, so there are times I ask my children, come, are you trying to call me to glory? Because you would call and call and call and call, and I'm like, wait, why? So your child has to call and call and call, or your child is talking to you and you're doing okay, but your face is not, you're not giving them eye contact. That is neglect. That is a level of emotional neglect. Now, emotional neglect doesn't only have to be through actions. It can even be your absence. You don't have to be there. When you are mostly unavailable. That is also a level of emotional neglect. Now, the next word we are defining is fear-based discipline. Now, when we talk about fear-based discipline, what we mean is using shame, using punishment, using criticism, using negative energy, using threat to gain short-term control or compliance. Now, okay, basically, that is what fear-based discipline is. And of course, we've explained emotional intelligence to mean um, putting feelings. Yeah, in the most simplified way, emotional intelligence is putting feelings to putting thinking, yes, stopping to think about how you feel. So putting thinking to how you feel, thinking about how you feel. That is basically the simplest form that I like to put emotional intelligence. But we can define it as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, and the ability to recognize and support other people's emotions. Now let's proceed. I'd like us to take a minute. I'd like us to take a minute and reflect briefly. When we yell, why does yelling feel like the only tool? Yes, in those times that you raise your voice at your child, why does it feel like that is the only thing that can work in that time? Why? And just pause and think about it. Now, where did you also learn that yelling equates authority? Where did you learn it? Where did you learn it? That yelling equates authority. When you say, I turned out fine, what exactly do you mean by that? What do you really mean when you say, I turned out fine? Turning out fine is not the same as turning out whole. I say that again. Turning out fine is not the same as turning out whole. So let's go to the myth of harmless yelling. According to us, yelling is harmless. Is it really harmless? You have heard it. I was yelled at and I turned out okay. But let us pause right there. Did you say you turned out okay? You turned out okay, but when somebody raises their voice at you, you cringe, or you flinch, or you feel uncomfortable, or you feel really anxious. You turned out okay, but do you feel unsafe when there is conflict, when there is any form of misunderstanding in your circle, in your immediate environment? You turned out okay, but do you freeze when your child cries? Do you feel uncomfortable when your child sits down to cry and exert all of their emotional overwhelm? And then you're now the one telling them, why are you crying? Will you stop crying? Or the worst part of it, let me give you something to really cry about. And then you want to beat the child. But then we say we turned out okay. So did we really turn out okay? That is not turning out okay. That is basically building a coping mechanism, which is what most of us learned to do. We learned to develop a coping mechanism. We learned to survive, basically. Now, children who are regularly yelled at often grew up to struggle with anxiety, low self-esteem, self-doubt. Yes, self-doubt, low self-esteem, self-doubt, difficulty in expressing their emotions. You are upset, but you don't even want to talk about it. I would rather just let it be. I like peace. Is it really because you like peace, or just because you would prefer to not talk about it? You would rather repress the emotion and not have the conversation at all. Children who are also yelled with eventually struggle to build healthy relationships, healthy, meaningful, secure attachments, secure relationships. They also engage in self-blame. Something happens and then they are quick to say, oh, it was because I did this. It was because he wouldn't have beaten me if not because I did this. He beat me because he's trying to correct me. She's the one that got me angry. That's why I beat her. The same reason we keep giving ourselves when we beat our children. Why are you making me angry? Is it your child that is making you angry? Because you're getting upset or you're feeling upset is absolutely on you. Your child did not press any button. So there's a trigger. Now let's make this a little more practical. Assuming that you as an adult, you are at work and then your boss screams at you in front of the entire team. Yes, your team, the entire your team that you work with in your workplace. Would you still call that love? Or would you feel small? Will you feel disrespected? Would you feel disregarded? Would you feel insecure? Would you feel unsafe when that happens? How would you feel? Now that you have pictured how you would feel, now imagine a 5-year-old child whose brain cannot even process information fully yet. A 5-year-old child, the brain literally grows to be able to process information well until late 20s or early 30s. But then we have a level of expectation. So imagine how a 5-year-old child would feel when you yell at that child. A child who is not even able to process her emotions yet, who is not even able to process her thoughts, who doesn't even have the words to express how she feels. So imagine how that child would feel when the child is yelled at. Now that you have imagined that, yelling doesn't train your child. Yelling tames your child. Yelling reduces your child's capabilities. Yelling reduces your child's ability to express themselves. Instead, it instills fear. It instills shame. It makes them silent. It closes them up. They look for it when your child is yelled at, the child looks for a safe space and then closes himself. So that is why you literally see people withdraw when they are yelled at. It's because they are looking for somewhere that feels very safe. So they close them. So you can literally read their body language and tell that something closed up. They shrink, literally. They cringe. That is what yelling does. So why do we yell? Now let's take it back. Let's take it back. Why do we yell? Because in the actual sense, the yelling is not the problem. The yelling is only an indication that there is a problem. But when you yell at your child, what your child sees is that I am the problem. So when you yell at your child identifies to be the problem. Your child is not able to dissociate herself from the situation. So when you yell at your child, you're telling your child that your child is the problem. Instead of focusing on what the problem is, you're attacking your child as the problem. That is what your child feels. So why do we yell? Like I said, yelling is an indication that there is a problem. Yelling comes from unprocessed emotions. You're exhausted, you are stretched in and pulled in many directions. Yet no one sees how exhausted you feel. Unprocessed emotions. And then boom, something happens. And the fuse blows up. Another one is unrealistic expectations. You are expecting adult logic from a developing brain. you'll be disappointed. That's the actual truth. When you have unrealistic expectations, you expect a 5-year-old child to behave like an adult, or you expect a 12-year-old child to behave like an adult. You expect an 18-year-old to behave like a full-blown adult. Really? Unrealistic expectations. You would be disappointed because even you as an adult, there are times you do certain things and you know in yourself that this thing could have been better. Do you beat yourself up for it? Another reason we yell is generational wounds. That was how your grandmother saw to deal with anger. And then your mother saw her do that and she inherited it. Your mother inherited it and passed it on to you. And then you are literally doing the same. So it becomes that is what generational trauma is really. So it becomes a generational thing. And then we keep passing it down. So that way we eventually pass down trauma to our children. And then they are grown-ups and they struggle or they are struggling to heal from these experiences that we passed down to them. Another reason we yell is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing control. We want to be in control. We want to be in charge. We want to be the one deciding what happens when. So when something doesn't go your way, you're afraid, fear. And then you shout out so that you can gain the control back because you don't want to let go of it. Don't tie the wall to your chest. Don't mind me, that was sarcasm. But please, fear, out of the fear of failure, the fear of losing control, the fear of being judged. Oh, you want to raise a child that is societally acceptable, quote and unquote. So you would use the yardstick of some other people to raise your own child. There has to be a model. So because you don't want somebody else to judge your child wrongly, you are afraid that your child has to be raised a certain way. Yeah. Now let me say it clearly. We are parenting from pain. And when pain is unhealed, it becomes parenting patterns. I say that again. We are parenting from pain. And when pain is unhealed, it becomes parenting patterns. Those transgenerational wounds that I talked about. That is what happens when we parent from a place of pain. Now, let's take a minute and reflect on our childhood. Take a minute, reflect on your childhood. Think back on your own childhood experiences. Were you yelled at? Were you yelled at? If you were yelled at, to what extent? How did it make you feel? Those times you were yelled at, those times you were yelled at, like right now, how do you feel looking back at your childhood? Were you yelled at? Were you labeled a certain way, so difficult? Were you labeled the difficult child, the sensitive child, the different child? What name were you called? Was your personality labeled? Were you labeled with a tag? How did all of these experiences shape you? How did they shape your emotional world? Did you shrink or did you toughen up? Those who toughened up have now become there's something they say in the part of the world where I'm from, Yoruba. They say it's fire rubber. So you toughen up and then you become Iron Lady. Or do you keep trying harder just to please them, just to make sure that you are acceptable or you are accepted? So you keep trying hard to be the good child. Or did you just decide early in life that no one would ever understand you and that was fine? Now, fast forward to today. How has all of these, whichever aspect you fell into, your memories as your childhood memories, how has all of this influenced you now as an adult? How do you react when your child tests your patience? When your child tests your boundaries, how do you react? Do you find your tone rising even before you catch yourself? Your voice already feels tensed. Your child is not triggering you. Your child is only revealing the wounds that you haven't yet healed from. I say that again. Your child is not triggering you. Your child is only revealing the wound that you are yet to heal from. So, like I said when we started, tonight's session is not a blame call. No, it's not a call to blame anybody or to hold a mirror and judge anybody. No, that's not why we're here. It is a wake-up call. It is a call to become more aware, more in tune with yourself. Because when we know better, we will do better. And of course, when we do better, we will heal better. And when we heal better, we will become better parents. We will become parents who pause and process and respond instead of reacting. We won't be reactive parents, we'll be responsive parents. We'll become adults who repair the impact, not just creating ruptures, not creating damaged environments or damaged individuals or producing damaged individuals in our society. We'll become humans who choose to connect instead of control others. Instead of the crave, the need to want to control your children. When you heal better, you see the need to honestly want to connect genuinely with your children at all costs. So the parenting patterns that we deny are the very ones that we pass on to our children. Those ones we keep excusing. Oh, my mommy beat me and I turned out fine. Yes, we will do the same thing to our children and we will traumatize them. We will pass the same level of generational trauma to our children. So the same traumatic experiences that you have allowed yourself to believe was right. Oh, my mommy beat me and I turned out fine. And they used to yell at us, and look at us today. The parenting patterns we deny are the very ones we pass on to our children. So before, as we proceed, I would like us to take a moment and process what childhood memories were like for us. What is one moment from your childhood? What is one moment where you remember being misunderstood, being judged wrongly, or being labeled? What is one moment from your childhood where you remember being misunderstood, being judged wrongly, or being labeled? Now, how does that memory, that moment, the memory of that moment, remembering that moment now, how does it show up in your parenting today? Either in small ways or in big ways. How does it show up? Either in the way you correct your children, in the way you connect with your children, in the way you speak to your children, in the way you parent and relate with your children. How does this moment show up in your parenting journey today? What would it feel like to actually parent your children from a place of awareness, from a place of consciousness, from a place of deliberate intention, not just running on autopilot? You are not alone. And the truth is, it is never too late to start right. It is never too late to ditch the criticism, to ditch the connection, to ditch the control, to ditch the negative perspective, to ditch the need to want to inflict pain in the name of correction, in the name of punishment, in the name of discipline. Because really, I always say it, discipline is not inflicting pain. Discipline is not punishment. Correction is not punishment. Correction means you continue to teach until that child gets it. And even when you think that that child has gotten it and then there's a mistake, it's an indicator that the child is not done learning. Because correction is a learning process. So you are not alone. You can ditch all of that and just focus. Focus on nurturing a healthy, warm relationship. Focus on nurturing a healthy connection. Focus on raising that child who feels emotionally secure, who feels emotionally safe. Focus on creating an atmosphere in your home that helps to nurture a safe environment. One that your child closes from school and he's honestly looking forward to coming back home. Not one that your child is crying, I don't want to go home. Because if your child doesn't want to go home, when they eventually fly, when the nest is empty, they won't come back. So tomorrow we'll be looking at how discipline impacts our parenting, or how discipline impacts emotional intelligence, how discipline is either how discipline rather helps with emotional intelligence or emotional suppression. So that's what we'll be looking at tomorrow. Thank you very much for following today's session. It's time to ditch reactive parenting and be more of a responsive parent with deliberate intention, with truth, and with emotional safety. As for today, just breathe, observe, notice the little moments, give yourself permission to grieve the patterns that you've carried so far, whilst you're celebrating your courage to begin something new. Begin something new, like connecting with your child genuinely, without criticism, without making your child feel not enough. Parenting isn't about getting it right. Parenting is about getting honest and getting healing. Because if you do not heal, you will bleed on those who did not hurt you. Thank you very much and have an amazing, amazing time. See you tomorrow.